Hey, I'm Dean and this is Legacy Voyage. In Season 1, I'm documenting my journey to earning my first 100K net worth as a full-time college student. Join me as I share some of the lessons I learned along the way.
I just had a huge epiphany moment right now. Walking in the gym, talking with my uncle, and this entire time I've been talking about this idea of what's the cash value? What's the cash value of your beliefs? What's the cash value of your relationships and your skills and all the things? What's the cash value? That's what I've always been coming back to. There's something that I just thought of is that at the very end of your life, you're gonna pay for it. So the cash value of you eating terrible food and being super unhealthy and not exercising, the cash value of that you're going to pay for it. And at the end of your life, it's going to be you die young. And on the opposite side, it would be if you're exercising all the time and you love the way you feel and how it makes you feel healthy. And then you'll pay for that at the end of your life by being able to walk around and pick up your grandkids and go to their weddings and stuff. And you could apply it to everything. And something else that I just thought about was the cash value of something is subjective to you. I'm not really sure if that's true, but that's just thinking out loud is because the cash value to me of believing that the church is true, believing that Jesus Christ is who he said he was, I think that has a positive cash value in my life because the way it plays out, I think I'm just a happier person in general. The people around me are happier. But for someone like Alex Hermosi, someone that I look up to actually, his whole philosophy, his whole belief system is on that we're all gonna die and pass away and none of this really even matters. But for him, it seems like that's a positive cash value in his life, and he'll pay for that because at the end of his life, he'll see how that belief plays out. But that's just one of the epiphanies I had today, and I wanted to share that because I think that's gonna be really important in the way I live my life from now on. I really do. And just recording my journey. I'll see you in the next one. Last weekend, just came back from a conference. One of the people that I met was this software company that they help assisted living facilities on internal operations. A software that keeps track of medications and things that residents are doing, all the internal operational stuff. And I was talking with the founder, going back and forth about books we read and stuff. And eventually I got to talking about internships and why I prefer internships a lot more than school. Because that's when you really get your hands dirty. That's when you actually learn what you need to know. And then on top of that, you learn what you need to learn. And you know why you need to learn those things. Like a great example of this would be accounting. And I've taken some accounting classes back in high school. I didn't understand why I needed to know a cash flow statement or a balance sheet. I didn't understand why I have to know those things. And then doing my internship with the search fund, I now realize that you have to know those things so you can evaluate a business. And then after that, so you could buy the business. That's why you have to learn accounting. And I can see how it all makes sense now. And the difference between classroom learning and internship learning, real world experience, is just in case versus just in time. Because in the classroom, you get bombarded with all the random information that you have to memorize and then regurgitate. That's just in case learning. You learn it just in case you might need it in the future. But the learning that I prefer is when you get out there in the real world and it's just in time learn, where the book I'm reading applies exactly to what I need to know right now. It's where I go out, figure out my blind spots, and then from there, I learn because I need to know those things for what I'm trying to do. And then actually applying it into the real world is amazing too. And that's another one of my epiphanies is talking about blind spots. So I've identified blind spots as the unknown unknowns, the things that you don't know, things that'll kill you. And it's the number one priority whenever you're trying to learn something new is to identify your blind spot. And it's difficult to identify your blind spots on your own. Very, very difficult. Probably it's pretty close to impossible. The only way to do it is when someone else identifies it for you. So you could either do that through like a course, being around a community of people who can tell you exactly where your blind spots are, and then you could go out and learn from it. Here's an example. I remember listening to someone who was telling all these stories about the time that he and his wife went and ran a marathon. I was like, wow. I didn't know you could have those types of stories. I didn't know you could have fun and make it a time of victory to win a marathon. I didn't know all those things. And that's when I was like, whoa, I think running a marathon is actually possible. I think I might be able to actually do it. And that was a blind spot right there that someone else helped me identify. And the last thing I want to talk about today is probably the most mind blowing epiphany that I had this past week because it all comes back to my dominant question that I live by. What's the cash value? What's the cash value of your beliefs? The cash value of your mindset, of your habits, of everything that you do, everything that you have. What's the cash value? And taking that analogy further, you're going to have to pay that down at the very end of your life. You're going to have to pay for the cash value of your health, exercise, your nutrition, all those things. You're going to have to pay that down. You're going to have to pay down the cash value of your mindset. And it can either be positive or it can be negative. But either way, you'll have to pay it down. And that was a mind blowing epiphany that I had. But also on top of that, is taking it even further, there are some things that are compounded. For example, your relationships, they compound. If you know one successful person, one really good person, and you know them super well, that relationship will compound into multiple relationships. But you can also fight the skills. If you if you learn how to talk to people, from there you learn how to write. From there you learn copyright, you learn sales, you learn all these things, and then you can apply to finance and all these skills they compound on each other. Yeah, it's so many other things. It's your mindsets, your beliefs, your identities, what identities that you take on, the choices you make, they all compound. And another important point is that just like in real life, where if I have a diamond or if I have some type of theme, different types of people will look at that and determine a different cash value for it. And the same thing goes on in our lives. The cash value is subjective to you. And I think it's subjective on your happiness. The laws, of course, brownie, it might have a high cash value for happiness right now, but 10, 20, 50 years later in your life, and a million brownies later, is that cash value going to be positive for your long-term happiness? But that's just something that I've been thinking about. There's definitely holes in that argument. That is for sure. There's definitely some holes in there. And those are the blind spots that I gotta identify. Just the reading books and stuff, philosophizing and things. But those are some thoughts I had throughout the week. With the life update, like I said, we went to a conference. It was pretty good. Just networking and meeting new people, trying to provide as much value as I can. But especially starting off, it's kind of hard to give value when you don't really have much to give. The other thing that I was thinking about was being out there at the conference, and I'm not sure how beneficial it is to go to all these events without actually putting in the work. Because the work, it's not bright and shiny, and it doesn't look as good as going to these events and conferences. The real work, it needs doing. And the question is, who's going to do it? Because if it's not you, then it's going to be someone else, and they'll take your spot. They'll take your money. They'll take whatever the thing is. So this week is where it begins. I leave back to school. Well, I just leave Friday. Something going on in Texas. Well, before then, this last week is going to be a grind. It's going to be the last push forward. And then completely shook my mind to search funds and venture capital firms and things. Looking forward to it. It should be, but that's it for the. There's a lot on my mind right now, but today I want to talk about something that helps me give advice to myself. And it's something called the Solomon's paradox. If you don't know who Solomon was, in the Bible, the Old Testament specifically, he was this king who was known for being super wise. He wrote the book on wisdom, like literally. It's called Proverbs and it translates to wisdom. And the reason he got it is because God asked him, look, you can have a whole bunch of riches. You can have anything you want in the world. What do you want? And King Solomon, he said, I want wisdom. Give me wisdom. And that's why he's known for the wisest guy. And the paradox comes in when an example for me would be someone else comes to me about food. They come to me asking about nutrition advice. Like, what should I be eating? Is this okay for me? Is this not okay for me? What should I do? All these questions. And I'll start giving them advice, this and that, and keep going from there. But eventually it gets to the point where I start giving advice, really good advice, that I don't listen to myself. So the paradox comes into play when you're usually very wise about someone else's decisions, about someone else's life. You can usually give pretty good advice, but the hard part is when you try to live it out, is when you try to listen to your own advice. That's where the tough part is. So there's this mind exercise or thought experiment that I tried doing. I learned it from Alex Hermosi. This whole thing was taken from Alex Hermosi, but it's called the 85-year-old thought experiment. And it's when you put yourself in the frame of mind as your 85-year-old self. And from there, you have conversations and you ask for advice. And there's a couple reasons why this is so powerful. I think one of the biggest reasons is because you know yourself the best. You've had all the conversations, you've lived all the experiences, you've been to all the places, you have all the background information that you could possibly have. So that's one really big reason why I think this is super powerful. And the other reason is that you know that you don't have any other ulterior motives. You know that as your 85-year-old self, all you want is for your younger self to be the best person they can be. So that's another reason. And then there's also the fact that you start thinking in a longer time horizon. Instead of thinking in the immediate future, like what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next week, next month, you start thinking about it in decades and what it's going to look like at the end of your life. And it comes to the ultimate question and the ultimate problem that we're all trying to solve is what happens after you die is the big death question. So it really hits you in the face of like, what are you going to do when death comes? And what's really important to you? Because at 85 years old, you don't have a lot to live. So that's just something that I've started doing every now and then, especially when I get stressed out or confused. For example, there was a couple days ago when I was overwhelmed. And I think it was like a sense of anxiety. And so on the drive back from the office, I was just having a conversation with my 85-year-old self. I said, "Look, 85-year-old Dean, give me some advice. Well, what do you have for me? I'm feeling super overwhelmed, super anxious. Help me out." And then I went through this whole exercise of what do you have going on in your life? What are your priorities? What should you be focusing on? And it actually really helped me narrow down my focus because one of the things that I've learned is that anxiety is just when you're overwhelmed with too many options. It's like it's the exact opposite of sadness. It's when you don't have any perceived options. And that's just a quick thing I wanted to share. There's a lot more on my mind, but focusing on one big lesson for each episode is the way I think I'm going to do it and start recording more often. And then at the very end of the week, just editing and splicing all of it together. For the life update, there's a lot of updates, but the biggest one is that I found out I got another internship at Succession, which is another search fund. So when I go back this fall, I'll be in 3 internships, and I'm super excited to go in and learn. It's gonna be an amazing experience. Really looking forward to it. But that's it for the pod, or at least for this part of the pod. Today was the first day of my venture capital internship, so I'm super excited to talk about that. It's a super chill, low commitment internship. The only thing I have to do is attend the weekly Monday meetings, and that's where they'll go over a whole bunch of things. But what I'm most excited for is to be a part of their other meetings throughout the week. And it'll be meetings where I get to hear deals being pitched and they're raising funds. And there's a lot that I'm learning just within venture capital that I'm super excited to learn more about. I mean, even in our first meeting, they were throwing around a whole bunch of terms and acronyms. But the key to learning that I found, and this will be the lesson for this snippet of the podcast. The lesson is figure out what you don't know. As rule number one of learning, know what you don't know. Because the best part about learning something new is when it completely opens up your mind to the things you didn't even know existed. The things you didn't even know that you didn't know. And that's the coolest part. The biggest example of this, well, even in the meeting this morning, there are a whole bunch of terms that are thrown around. I didn't know that I didn't know those things. So now that I know I don't know those things, I can make the first step towards knowing it, which is looking them up and researching it and trying to figure out what it actually means. A huge example of this was recently I bought a Google Ads course. It was a great investment. It was like $500, But with that $500, it completely opened my world of digital marketing. And now I've gained a new skill in my tool belt that will down the road make me millions and millions of dollars. I know that for a fact because that Google Ads skill is so invaluable. I'm really glad that I was able to pick it up now. Some examples, some of the things I learned was the importance of testing. Split testing is the name of the game. The most important thing in business is data-driven decisions. That's what I found. In business, marketing, anything. It's all about the data. You don't make decisions based on whatever you feel like that morning or what you ate for breakfast. You make decisions based on the data. The only way you get data is by testing. So testing is the name of the game. And it's really the only way you know it works. So that's a lesson for today. I record these episodes completely free to share success with everyone. So the only thing I ask is that if you learned anything or found something interesting in this episode, just leave a review and share it with a friend. Only takes 5 seconds and it would mean the world. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next episode. Tatok, see you.